Hi, Year Nines. Today we're going to go over the Veldt, the short story that we read in class last week. If you can go ahead and click pause after this, but just you need to load Connect and OneNote. Okay? And I'll give you a couple seconds to do that. Once you've done that, you need to go into your Connect page, okay? So obviously I have 2 Year 9 classes, so I'll just click one of them. You need to go to Library, and all of the texts that we're going to cover within this week and also when we come back in Term 2 will be under Unit 2. So click on Unit 2. And the most recent story, the Veldt, is all right here. So we have the text, okay? We have our comprehension questions and the hints that we went over here. So download the text first, okay? Because you're going to need to refer back to this in order to answer the questions. So I'll just put this to the side for right now. And I'm also going to download the questions. All right, I just wanted you all to do questions 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, and 11 and 12. And the best spot to do these questions are in OneNote, okay? So once you have loaded the documents and the questions, open up OneNote, whether it be the app or through your email, okay, through the same spot that you've done it before. When you open up OneNote, I have already shared with you on the tab online learning. And under online learning, I've shared with you the plot diagram and links to the questions as well. So if Connect is particularly slow, you can go to OneNote and the questions and the hints will be there as well. I would like you to write your responses in OneNote. That way I can look back on them. Okay. We'll go through them together. So what I need you to do, if you're using a laptop, this is particularly easy to do. You can split your screen. So I'll put OneNote over here and I'll leave these two here, but I'm going to refer to the text, so I'll keep the text there. Okay, so let's talk about the Veldt now. So basically the story is of mother and father, Lydia and George Hadley, and how they're struggling with their technology advanced home, and it's taking over their roles as parents. Their children are starting to become uncooperative from their lack of discipline, and also ultimately the children become quite dangerous. Now Ray Bradbury, he wrote this story in 1950, so a long time ago, but some of the technology that is in the Happy Life home from the story we can already see today. Okay, so let's go to the first question. First question being, in the Veldt, author Ray Bradbury repeatedly uses personification to give human traits to the Happy Life home operating system. Write and find down 2 lines, okay, of when personification is used. So if you looked in the hints, okay, I said to look in paragraphs 7 and 5. So in paragraph 7, says, you know very well what he'd want. His wife paused in the middle of the kitchen and watched the stove, busy humming to itself. making supper for four. So personification, if we remember, personification is when we give human traits to inanimate objects, okay, non-human things. So in this case, the Happy Life home is the non-human thing. And one of the human traits is that it's busy humming to itself, okay? We know that homes or stoves do not hum to themselves, okay? Another example is in paragraph 145. So if we scroll down, it says, and although their beds tried very hard, the two adults couldn't be rocked to sleep for another hour. A smell of cats was in the night air. Okay, so this is another example of personification. So again, we know that beds may have the ability to rock or move, but they do not have the humanistic trait of rocking someone to sleep and trying very hard to. So those are some examples of personification used. I believe that Ray Bradbury did this in order to give the home a nurturing personality, okay? And also to clue in the reader that the home is replacing the parents, and the parents are starting to rely on the home to be nurtured as well. Okay, question 2. We're told that the Happy Life home cost $30,000 installed. Bradbury published this story in 1951. Due to inflation, it turns out that $1 in 1951 is worth about $9 today. I would say that it's probably a little bit more. So given this, how much would the Happy Life home cost in today's dollars? Would there be a market today for such a system? Why or why not? Okay, so if my math is correct, I would say that it cost about $270,000. Now, that is quite cheap for Australia, but so I would consider it being a little bit more. Now, it's easy to imagine these types of technologies that are in the home today because there's smart houses that exist and which we can control the house remotely. And virtual reality is also continuing to evolve. So maybe in the near future, we will have nurseries that use virtual reality in simulated environments. So Bradbury's 1951 imaginings, they're quite close to becoming a reality. All right, question 3. Early in the story, what evidence are we given that the Happy Life home system has not made either of the adults particularly happy? What message might Bradbury be trying to deliver here? Now, Lydia Hadley, as we can see throughout the story, she's anxious and she's fretful. She says that she has too much time to think and that she's feeling quite useless. George Hadley, he's smoking more, he's drinking more, he's also using sedatives to sleep every night. So the modern conveniences of their home, they were supposed to improve their lives, but the opposite effect has happened. So it's quite ironic. Bradbury seems to be telling us that we need to work in order to be fulfilled. And we see that through the examples of Lydia and George feeling quite useless as parents and as individuals because everything is being done for them. So this leads to the theme of an idle life, a life where you're not doing much, okay, doesn't lead to happiness. It could be argued that the beginning portion of the story teaches us that we need to work and create things in order to feel useful in our lives. George says he wanted his son to learn how to paint, not rely on a machine to paint pictures for him. Then Peter, the boy, says, I don't want to do anything but look and listen and smell. What else is there to do? Clearly, Bradbury is indicating our modern consumer culture in this passage. He argues it's better to be the creator than the consumer. Okay? Go ahead and click pause at any time in order to write these ideas. that I'm giving into your comprehension question responses. Okay. Let's continue. We're going to go to question 4 now. Early in the story, Bradbury skillfully raises 2 important points about modern life in a single sentence. Look closely at this sentence and then explain the 2 points Bradbury is attempting to plant in the reader's mind. At dinner, they ate alone, for Wendy and Peter were at a special plastic carnival across town and had televised home to say they'd be late to go ahead eating. Okay, so from this sentence, we should pause and wonder what happened to real life human carnival performers. So it's not a typical circus or Cirque du Soleil with human performers. So what would a special plastic carnival look like? So it's just another example that Bradbury's making of human jobs being taken over by inanimate objects. We should also pause and be concerned that the children are telling their parents that they won't be home for dinner instead of asking for permission. It's clear that the children held too much power in this family. Okay, so they have little to no respect for their parents. Also, students, I want you to notice that the family doesn't eat dinner together. So this also shows an example of disconnectedness. Okay, question 6. Bradbury uses 2 interesting similes when he described the children, Peter and Wendy. First, I want you to write down the similes he uses to describe the children's physical traits, then explain what is ironic about these choices. Okay, so according to your hints, if you look at paragraph 90, okay, paragraph 90, there are some examples in there, okay? So he uses similes, the similes that he uses. Let's go to paragraph 90. Wendy and Peter were coming in the front door, cheeks like peppermint candy, eyes like bright blue agate marbles, a smell of ozone on their jumpers from their trip in the helicopter. You're just in time for supper, said both their parents. Okay, so he uses similes when he says that the children's cheeks are like peppermint candy and their eyes are like bright blue marbles. So these are ironic choices because they emphasize innocence and sweetness in the children. Okay, but we learn by the end of the story that they're not quite innocent and they're not very sweet. In fact, they're very, very dangerous. Okay, let's continue. Go to question 8. Of all the worlds, both real and imaginary, what would appeal to children? Why do you suppose Wendy and Peter chose to focus their attention on the African Veldt? What is the appeal? Okay, so your answers are going to vary in this, but one of the things that I thought of that I'll share with you is that the Veldt is a wild and untamed place, okay? There's no adults, okay? There's no people at all, so there's no one telling the children what to do and when to do. There's no rules. There's no rules in the African Veldt. It's also interesting to note that their world that they're conjuring, the African Veldt, has no technology. And that's all, most of the creature comforts that they enjoy are through technology. So they're kind of craving the opposite of what they have. Okay, question 11. The ending of the story is intentionally vague. Explain what you think happened to Mr. and Mrs. Hadley. What do you think will happen to Mr. McLean, to Wendy and Peter? Okay. This is your own response to fill in, okay? So just pause and go ahead and write in your own response. Question 12, thinking back over the story, what do you suppose is Bradbury's opinion of children, of humanity? Provide at least one line of this text that supports your response, okay? Again, I'd like you to do this question on your own. Okay?